All right, y'all, how's my sound? All right, welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, right here on the SHR Media Network, where masculinity has not been recalled and faith has not been neutered. Today is Thursday, January 8th, the year of our Lord 2026, and we're not just talking about politics. We are engaged in spiritual warfare that has been dressed up as progress. And we're done pretending otherwise. We're done pulling punches. And we are never going to apologize. You are not going to get soy lattes and group hugs up in here. But stick around. And you might just find what you're looking for. All right, y'all, let's get after it. I had a whole show planned. And then all hell broke loose in Minneapolis. And I spent most of the morning trying to figure out what I was going to cut, how much I was going to talk about this. And so we're just going to go for it and see where it takes us. I see so many people, and I just saw someone on one of the social media sites yammering about how this was murder, completely unjustified, and just utter ridiculousness. Utter ridiculousness. And I want to take a look at some videos so that we can establish beyond a shadow of a doubt what that evidence shows. Now, first of all, the agents were on foot. The vehicle was clearly advancing on the agent who opened fire. And despite what all the armchair pundits and people who never strapped a gun to their hip, never wore a badge, despite what they're saying, there was no clear exit for that officer to escape to. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, let's take a look at this video, and then we'll break it down and get into some of the nitty-gritty of this. Because it never fails. It really never fails with these people. They are, I mean, there's so many words you could use to describe these fools. It's insane. But let's take a look at this. Now, apparently this woman right here was the woman's partner who was filming the whole thing. This seems to have been a social media stunt gone completely wrong. But I want to take a look at another angle, because not angle, but a very slowed down version of this. So we can point out some things that, like I said, these armchair pundits who never wore a uniform, who never carried a weapon and was faced with having to deploy that weapon for any reason. This is what And it's slowed down. So, I mean, all of this happened within split seconds. And this officer had to make these decisions just like that. And so we have the benefit of this slow motion, but I want to take a look at this. There's the officer right there. And a lot of people are making a big deal about the way the wheels were turned, but she's backing up here. And now the wheels are turning and spinning. Watch. Those tires are spinning. She is accelerating to the point where the tires are spinning. And so she's moving forward, and you can see this officer right here drawing his weapon. And now he's on target, and she's still coming forward. And there's the first shot. And at that point, from a different angle, you can see that she actually hit him. And we may get to that video here in a second as well. This was completely avoidable. And we're going to get into how it's avoidable. And my camera is doing some weird stuff. I apologize for that. But anyway, that vehicle, I believe, weighs upwards of 3,500 pounds. That's a weapon. That is a deadly weapon. And she was aiming that weapon at this officer, at this agent. That's lethal force. And he met it. He met the threat with lethal force. And again, we looked at that over the period of a minute. That happened just like that. That was a split-second decision. And he made the right one as far as I'm concerned. Now, it is very likely that he is going to be prosecuted by the state of Minnesota. And we'll see how that goes. But he was hit by this woman in this vehicle. He's in the hospital right now. He survived that encounter. And as sad as it is that someone lost their life, it didn't have to happen that way. It did not have to happen that way. It could have been avoided by her just simply complying with the commands of the officers. It could have been avoided by the state of Minnesota allowing ICE to go into the jails and scoop up these illegal aliens. They wouldn't have had to be in the neighborhoods. They wouldn't have had to conduct operations on this street. And I know that, I believe, I've been seeing some different reports, but I believe that these officers were there investigating the fraud. I'm not entirely sure about that. Regardless of the situation, it could have been completely avoided. She could still be alive. And last night on Sean's show, he made the point. She made the decision to engage in behavior that could potentially separate her from her children. Whether that meant she ended up going to jail, being arrested for being stupid, or as it turns out, she is now deceased for making a stupid decision. These people, like I said, this could have been completely avoided. Completely avoided. But it was predictable. I think we all know it was predictable. We've seen these leftist politicians calling for violence. We've seen increases in assaults against ICE personnel. Physical assaults are up over 1,000%. Death threats against DHS officers up 8,000%. 8,000%. That's insane. These aren't mean tweets. These are actual death threats. Threats like doxing, threatening their families. That's why they're wearing masks. Because they've been doxed and their families have been threatened. Officers have had to move. Officers have had to be separate from their families. Tom Homan talks about it. He's been talking about it for months, how he's had to be separate from his family because of this. And then not to mention the officer involved, it wasn't that long ago that he had been dragged by someone in a vehicle. He'd been dragged. He wasn't going to go through that again, and I don't blame him. He saw that threat coming, and he took action. I talked about someone I saw on social media, someone who I know, talking about how this agent murdered this woman and other people. In fact, well, actually, no, before we get there, let's listen to the mayor of Minneapolis and what he had to say following the shooting.
To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. To ICE?
No. The person who aimed her vehicle at the officer, she created the environment that led to her death. Because prior to that, she had been following these ICE agents and blocking traffic, blocking them from being able to do what they were there to do. A witness actually said this.
Clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest. is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
That was her goal. Mission accomplished. Kind of. And I'm really behind in the chats. I apologize for that. BZ says she was a professional agitator, and there are reports that she is a paid agitator. So when you FA, eventually you will FO. And like I said, as sad as it is that someone lost their life, as I've said many times before, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. FAFO. And that's what happened. But getting back to the use of force. These officers, as a result of just the job that they have, then not to mention you add on the 8,000% increase in death threats, the doxing risk that they're taking, the fact that you have public officials basically telling their constituents to attack ICE agents. Jacob Fry actually, not too long ago, I don't have the clip, but actually not too long ago said that he thought that his constituents would attack ICE agents. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the essentially what he was saying. And now we have a woman dead because she decided she was going to try to run over an ICE agent. And I don't want to hear anything about the tires were turned this way and that. She was trying to get, no. You can kill that noise right now. These agents were in a hostile environment. They were in a heightened state of readiness because of all of the rhetoric against them. Crowds were forming, tensions escalating. I mean, this was a tinderbox. This was a tinderbox. And these officers are trained to deal with these types of situations. And then you add on the fact that he was just hit and dragged by another car not that long ago. What do you think is going to happen? And like I said, Fry and Walls are just escalating this, escalating it to a dangerous, dangerous level. And Tim Walz, if it wasn't such a sad situation, this guy would be, he's a clown. He is an absolute joke of a politician. And here he is basically fanning the flames on civil war.
Order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals, They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight.
Sackhead Sean said that was an insult to clowns. Maybe so, but it's the truth. And I'm not really a huge fan of clowns anyway, so there's that. But it's stuff like this that fans the flames of these confrontations. By saying he's going to activate the National Guard, he is saying that this officer, this agent, was in the wrong, and he's saying that he's basically saying they're going to retaliate. And I've been long of the opinion that well, for a long time, I didn't think that we were anywhere near a hot civil war. I have long said that we are in an ideological civil war, but I never thought that it would reach the point where it was even a possibility that we would end up in a hot civil war. But the way these people are going, the rhetoric that they're engaged in, I think we are as close now as we have been in, I don't know, 40, 50 years at the height of the civil rights movement. Every time they call law enforcement, ICE, CBP, every time they call one of those agents or officers the enemy, some lunatic is going to act on it. Whether that lunatic is some deranged citizen or a mayor or a governor. This was a tragedy. This was a tragedy. And I completely disagree with everything that this woman stood for. But her kids are without a mother. She's dead. Nobody wants that. Nobody sane wants that. Between the rhetoric of these people and them not allowing ICE agents into the jails, this was not just predictable, but this was inevitable. And when you accelerate your vehicle towards an officer, that's not protest. When you block agents from doing their jobs with your vehicle, that's not protest. But then when you accelerate towards them, that's escalation. And that escalation is going to be met with a way to de-escalate. And if you do that, you're not going to like the way they de-escalate. As long as ICE agents, as long as law enforcement is being called the enemy and it's open season on them, things like this are going to continue to happen. And we saw just this morning, there was protests at a federal building in Minneapolis. It seems as if it's calmed down a little bit now. I'm not, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention as I was getting ready for the show, but it seems like it's kind of died down a little bit. We'll see what happens when the rabble rousers wake up, or it warms up and they feel like they're ready to go out and make some trouble. We'll see. There is one other thing I wanted to talk about. Wow, the chat is on and popping this morning. I will get to it, I promise. But I wanted to talk about this because I did mention earlier about the armchair pundits, and I know I've circled back to that a couple of times now, but I wanted to play this one because this is another one that's just these people. when you've never trained in the use of force continuum, when you've never trained with a firearm, when you've never had to carry one on your job, you get idiots like this.
At some point in time, you got to ask yourself, what damn country do you want to live in? At some point in time, you're going to have to ask ourselves that question. And I think the time is sooner than later. Because again, from a legal perspective, don't expect this ICE officer to be prosecuted. I'm telling you right now.
I disagree. I think that he is going to face prosecution. And I think the state of Minnesota is going to do everything they possibly can to railroad this guy. And I'm hopeful that they can find some fair-minded jurors to rule in his favor, if it gets that far. But I mean, they are going to try. Without a doubt, they are going to try.
She was in the car, Renee Nicole Good, 37 years of age, protesting, blocking off the streets. ICE wanted her to move. An officer got in front of the car. Another officer got to the side of the car, and then she tried to take off. And then
that's not what happened. That is, and the other thing, these people, they make these grand declarations without having seen any of the footage or seen one angle of the footage that seems to support their particular narrative. I have watched so many videos, close up, far away, slowed down, full context videos. This officer acted in self-defense, period, end of story. And in a sane society, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But sane society has been out of the building for decades now.
in their eyes, the Christy Nomes of the world for the Department of Homeland Security, and other folks on the right are saying, yo, they consider it an act of domestic terrorism because she tried to run over an ICE officer. It's not going to be prosecuted. My point is, let's not focus on that for a second, okay? She was wrong to drive off. She should not have done that. Or she should have asked the officer, I'm pulling over. Could you move out the way, please? Instead of trying to disregard him totally to the point where you're going to take off and potentially hit him, and he moves out the way and draws his gun and shoots through the front windshield.
Again, so obvious he didn't watch any of the footage. None of it.
And took her out. But it wasn't necessary. You could have arrested her. You could have spared the woman's life.
Here we go. This is...
You didn't have to kill her. We've seen plenty of incidences throughout the United States of America historically and frequently and recently, where people who committed crimes or people whose behavior weren't indicative of law-abiding citizens who were simply obeying law enforcement officials, we've seen them walk away alive. We've seen them walk away cuffed, but they walked away alive.
Mainly because they didn't actually attack officers with deadly weapons. Just putting that out there.
So even though the law, from a literal perspective, might be on his side, the reality is that your humanity comes into question because you didn't have to kill her. She didn't have to die.
No, she didn't have to die. She didn't. She could have complied with the officers. She could have not blocked the officers from doing their jobs. She could have made any number of decisions that would see her be alive today.
But that's the country we're living in now. We're living in a country where some people, more often than not, are becoming lawless, and law enforcement officials are not just about enforcing the law while serving and protecting, but they're also taking lives.
What does that even mean? There was another point in this thing where he talked about shooting the tires and all this nonsense. Just complete and utter nonsense. Sackhead Sean had to leave to an appointment. Thanks for being here, Sean. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. BZ agrees with me. He will be prosecuted, as was Derek Chauvin. Yep. Agreed. Zihara, thank you for being here, Zihara. I haven't seen you before, but welcome. Glad you're here. Like I said, she conspired to impede the ICE agents to do their job. She broke many laws. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And she paid a very high price for doing so. Zihara is not an American, and they see where she was in the wrong end of. Agreed. Well, now you're just making too much sense, Zahara. Yes, the cop in the front wouldn't have had a view of the tires. Like Sean said in his show last night, in that situation, he had tunnel vision. He was in fight or flight mode, and no. And he had I'm not going to get into all the trying to shoot at smaller targets, smaller moving targets. But people are just dumb. People are just dumb. All right. I'm sure we're going to talk about that some more as these things unfold. It is unfortunate, like I said, that she had to lose her life, but it was the decision that she made, series of decisions that she made that led to that tragic outcome. All right. You know what? Let's move on, because I want to get into a couple of other things, and but before we do, let's go ahead and get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is Carry Girl Gear. Carry your faith, carry your family, carry your freedom. This is the 2026 Celebrate America t-shirt. Excuse me. Celebrating the 250th anniversary of this great country. And it's not just patriotic. It's not just patriotic gear that we have at Carry Girl Gear. We are a faith-based company. And this collection right here, An Imperfect Girl Redeemed by a Remarkable God, amen. We got the Still Worthy tee. My worship is loud because my wounds are deep. These are some awesome, awesome designs designed for a patriotic woman of God who also likes to exercise her Second Amendment rights. So we have the carry leggings, concealed carry canvas sling, just all kinds of great gear and t-shirts. And we're in a revival generation, I believe, and this is a revival generation beanie. It's wintertime, perfect time for the Esther 414 beanie. And we got these new drops here. You are a sweatshirt. The loved tee, cool moms love Jesus. There's all kinds of awesome, awesome gear. So head over to carrygirl.com and check out all of the great designs that we have over there. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching and listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch my good friend Sackhead Sean, who just left the chat with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ, who is making his presence known in the chat on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. He should be on tonight, barring any unforeseen weather issues. And you definitely want to make sure you check all of those great shows out. BZ is going to have some, as long as the weather cooperates, he's going to have some great insights about this and many other stories tonight. So be sure to subscribe and share all of those great shows, and pray that we have a huge breakthrough. We are at 715 subscribers, so thank you all very much for subscribing and sharing. We want to get to, we want to get to 1,000 this year, and the sooner we can do that, the sooner we can set a goal for 1,500, and so on and so on, because we want to reach as many people as we possibly can. Okay, 716 subscribers. So thank you all for that. All right, y'all, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So one of the things that I like to talk about, and sometimes circumstances don't always allow me to get to some of these things, but the title of this show is the Mission Ready Men briefing. And so what we are trying to do is talk to men specifically about men's issues, along with the news of the day and how we react to that. And a lot of the things that men are dealing with are actually manifesting themselves in the political sphere. I mean, we saw at the DNC last year where they talked about this new masculinity and pointing out men like Doug Emhoff and some of the other leftist guys as the new standard for masculinity. And of course, I completely reject that notion. Doug Emhoff is a known abuser. I believe it's on video, him striking his date years ago. And even if it's not on video, I think there's photo evidence of it and multiple witnesses. But I wanted to talk about this because there has been this pervasive idea that men can only be one of two things. They can either be harsh to be and bullying to be perceived as strong, or kind and then be perceived as weak. And that is just completely false. There is absolutely no basis, biblical or otherwise, for that. But we're gonna focus on the biblical aspect of it, and Jesus completely destroys that narrative. Jesus wept a few times, but he wept at Lazarus's tomb when his friend Lazarus died. But then he commanded death to stand down and called Lazarus forth in John 11:43. Called Lazarus out of the tomb. And he walked out of that tomb. The myth is that kindness and strength can't coexist. That they're somehow opposites. You have the turn the other cheek idea that's been weaponized to make men believe that they have to be passive. They have to avoid conflict. But if you do that, if you're passive and you avoid conflict, you allow evil to go unchecked and unchallenged. And that is not what men are supposed to do. Matthew 5:38 and 39 says, "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you to resist an evil person. I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also." So you have to take that in context. In that period of time, and it's still pretty much true to this day, most people are right-handed. So if you are going to smack somebody on the right cheek, you're going to have to backhand them. And backhanding is an insult. Backhanding is something that happened between a master and a slave, or some sort of master subordinate type situation, a boss employee, that kind of thing. He wasn't teaching cowardice in that instance. He was teaching people to not retaliate in terms of not retaliate for personal insults. If somebody insults you, if somebody does something to you, you are supposed to let that go. But he wasn't teaching us to abandon our responsibility. We weren't called to be doormats. We weren't called to be passive. We were called to be immovable, steadfast. Matthew 5:39 is about breaking a cycle of personal revenge, because if you retaliate, then that person's going to retaliate right back, and it's just going to be a never-ending cycle that solves nothing. What he's not doing is suggesting, commanding that if somebody is hurting someone in your family, your wife, your mother, your daughter, your son, he's not saying to just let that go. He's not saying to turn the other cheek in that situation, not by a long shot. Psalm 82:4 says, rescue the weak and needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. That pretty much goes against the whole passive, meek narrative. I'm going to talk about that word here in a little bit. People say that Christians can't or shouldn't use force. That being a Christian means you have to be passive. But what happens when you call 911? What happens when you want the military to stop genocide or something along those lines? You're okay with force then, but you're outsourcing it. Force is 100% biblically and morally justified when confronting evil. Simple as that. Because the alternative is letting evil run rampant. And that is 100% not biblical or moral. That's where we get the whole don't mistake our kindness for weakness mentality. Jesus was kind, but he was unmistakably dangerous. He walked into the temple. He made a whip. He saw the money changers taking advantage of people in the temple who would come to worship. He made a whip, started whipping people and flipping tables. I mean, he was acting on behalf of the people who could not act on their own behalf. They probably knew they were being taken advantage of, but they had no recourse. He saw that and said, I am your recourse. So he was displaying kindness towards those people who were being taken advantage of, and ferocity to the people who were actually exploiting them. And he went through publicly dismantling and humiliating the Pharisees and the rulers of the synagogues. Called them hypocrites. Called them sons of hell. He wasn't playing around. But he also touched lepers to heal them, defended a woman who was about to be stoned for adultery. I mean, he was not soft by any stretch of the imagination. He was kind to the broken and terrifying to the predators, to the evildoers. You can't love the sheep and then tolerate the wolves. You can't. Now, I mentioned the word meek. The word meek has taken on this connotation today that it's weak, that it's soft, that it's mild, that it's unassuming. But in the Greek, biblical meekness means the word meek in the Greek means strength under control, which is what we talk about a lot in terms of men being able to deal with threats, protect their families, and things along those lines. And as I've said already, Jesus was not meek. Matthew 26:53, where he's being taken by the Romans to face trial and crucifixion. And Peter had just cut the ear off one of the soldiers with his sword. And he turned to Peter and he said, "Do you think I cannot now pray to my Father, and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels?" That's power. And 12 legions, a legion, if you're going back to how the Romans defined a legion, that was about 5,000 soldiers. So Jesus just said he could call 12 legions. That's over 60,000 soldiers, over 60,000 angels to come and wreck shop if he wanted that. But he didn't, because his duty required restraint, not incapacity or inability. A man who can't fight back, that's not meek. That's someone who's not capable. And that's not what we were called to be. Proverbs 25:26, like a muddied spring is a righteous man who gives way to the wicked. We can't give way to the wicked. We're supposed to stand in that gap and fight the wicked. There's no virtue in restraint if there was never any power there to restrain. We're not called in Scripture to be safe. We're supposed to be useful. We're supposed to be capable. Nehemiah 4:14 says, "Fight for your families, your sons, and your daughters." Fight. There's no ambiguity in that word. David in Psalm 144 says, "Blessed be the Lord who trains my hands for war." Again, there's no ambiguity there. And we know David was a warrior. He was other things too, yes, but he was a warrior. And that's what our mission is. So in practical terms, what am I saying? Train your body. Train your mind. Stay alert. When you're out and about, don't have your face buried in your phone. Here at home, I'm certainly guilty of that. I think we all are. But in the safety of my home that's secure, I can do that. It's probably not the best idea regardless, but we are where we are. Be situationally aware when you're out and about. If you can't intervene if you're not aware of what's going on around you. If you see somebody hurting an old lady, attempting to abduct a kid, or attempting to abduct anyone, if you're buried in your phone, you can't see that. So if you're alert, you can't intervene. A dangerous man, I've talked about this before, is calm because he knows that he has his power under control. He's more disciplined, and he's not given to be impulsive because he has that inner calm, that inner peace. John 10:11 says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The good shepherd doesn't negotiate with wolves. He stands between the sheep and the threat of those wolves and is ready to kill one of those wolves or die trying. And so we're talking about sheep. We're talking about our families. We're talking about our communities. We're talking about our loved ones. So the type of men that Dana Bash was talking about at the DNC, and this leftist notion of new masculinity, those men are harmless. And those harmless men don't create peace. They create victims. And that's what we're seeing in the world today, all over the place. Weak, harmless men creating victims, paving the way for the evil people to take advantage of the victims. And we can't have that. Jesus wasn't a pacifist, not by any stretch of the imagination. He was meek, but the Greek word for meek, which, as I said, is strength under control. So the strength that God gave us exists to be of service to others. Refusing to use that strength and build and maintain that strength isn't virtue. It's abandoning your responsibility. Biblical masculinity means to be kind, but dangerous, vigilant, and ready. All right. I wanted to get that out there because I'm seeing I'm seeing evidence of that all over the place, and it's really, really annoying. Sackhead Sean in the chat says, man, I suck at this. I'm pretty sure that was when I was talking about getting your head out of your phone and stuff like that. And I mean, it happens. We're all guilty of it. Nobody's perfect. We're all guilty of it. But the trick is to be aware of it and understand it. All right. We got about a half an hour left, and I wanted to, this is something I wanted to get into last week, but ran out of time, and it kind of dovetails into the previous topic we were talking about, kind of. We talk about the being ready and being capable. And in this day and age, well, in Jesus told his disciples to sell their cloak and buy a sword. These days, that would be equivalent to buying a gun. And California, or California, I always spell it with a K if you're BZ. They just got smacked down by the Ninth Circuit of all appeals courts when they ruled that the public carry ban is not constitutional. The state had banned open carry in counties with over 200,000 people, which just pretty much happens to be every county, most counties in the state of California. So they said that they can't ban people from carrying weapons. And what California did was basically they took the Second Amendment, they took people's constitutional rights and made it so onerous to exercise that it was effectively banned. Between the licensing regimes, the training regimes, the expense of obtaining the license, and then going to a local sheriff who, in all likelihood, was going to deny you anyway. The Ninth Circus smacked that down. And I said the Ninth Circus, but then President Trump has not completely transformed the Ninth Circuit, but has made it a lot more fair in recent years. And it doesn't really fit the moniker Ninth Circus anymore. They still make some pretty bad decisions, but they have made some pretty good ones too. And the ruling that they handed down on this is based on Bruin, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which killed the idea that there was supposed to be a balance between public safety and exercising your right. And they no more allowed the whole experts say, no more trust us. Trust us, bro. The only question to be asked is the restriction in front of us grounded in American history and tradition? And in California's idea was that because cities were crowded and guns make politicians nervous. That means we should ban them. And guns really only make politicians nervous when it's not their security carrying them. Let's be honest. And the court basically said in this case, fear is not a constitutional standard. Bruin reminded politicians that the Constitution is not a suggestion box. It is the law of the land. Yeah. Sackhead Sean says they hate everyone else's guns but their own. Yeah, of course. There was that interview that that Mussolini did with, I want to say Nora O'Donnell, but it could have been someone else, where he was walking down the street talking about the Second Amendment. Meanwhile, you could see at least, I think at least 4 people, 4 members of his security detail, very obviously packing. Why would he feel the need to have such a stacked security detail if guns were banned? But of course, that just meant that the people who are not his security detail shouldn't have the. Was it Mussolini who no, it wasn't him. There was some politician who said that basically they were more important than everyone else and they should be allowed to have security carry guns, but nobody else should. I'm gonna have to see if I can look that up, or someone in the chat can find that. I want to say it was Mussolini, but it may not have been. So California before this ruling was a may issue state, and now they're saying they are shall issue. But there's still months-long waits, still mandatory training, still got to get fingerprinted, still have to go through psychological battery tests, and then pay hundreds of dollars in fees to exercise your constitutional right. At that point, it's not a right. California has infringed so hard on the right to keep and bear arms that it is, in a state of California, it's a privilege. It's a privilege that you have to go hat in hand to the state and beg them to let you exercise. And so they have these sensitive areas where you can't carry, public transportation, parks, government buildings, all businesses. So pretty much every place is a sensitive area. So you can get a permit, I guess, but you just can't use it anywhere. I mean, that's the extent of privilege in the state of California. When you have to submit to all of this nonsense and submit so much paperwork and spend so much money, it's not a right anymore. It's a subscription service. And I hate subscription services. Now, apply this logic anywhere else. Say that you are required to get a permit to attend church. Say that you need a license to post political opinions, which is kind of what's going on in Europe, even though they don't even issue those permits. A waiting period to publish criticisms of the government. How would that fly? Of course not. But they treat the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, as a secondary right, a second-class right. They don't even consider it a right, honestly. On the left, they don't consider the right to keep and bear arms an actual right. That right exists, as far as they're concerned, only after it's been approved, after you submit several applications in triplicate, spend hundreds of dollars, and even then there's no guarantee that it'll even get approved at that point. It's not a right if the government can approve whether or not you can exercise it. But as I say all the time, this is not about guns. This is not about, well, it's about their ability to control your rights and their ability to control you. This ruling is not the end. California wants to control you. So they're going to appeal. They'll rewrite some laws. They'll come up with new ways to make you jump through hoops to exercise a fundamental right, because it's never been about safety. Never been about safety. It's about who decides what rights you can exercise. And of course, the Ninth Circuit is saying the Constitution decides. But of course, we all know how that's going to work out in Sacramento. They're going to panic, and they're going to write a bunch of laws to try and circumvent it, and it'll be a never-ending cycle of rulings and appeals, because they don't trust you. They don't trust we, the people, with rights. And that's the problem. That's the whole problem. O2AMT says, some have used the phrase be ungovernable. Yeah. I have used that phrase, be ungovernable. There you go. Ungovernable. Seven Armors Tea. And you can get over to carrygirl.com and check that out. Shameless plug. Yes, I know. Didn't know that. Apologies. I'm not sure what you're apologizing for. Do you have ungovernable in Omar the Tent Maker size? We go up to 4XL. All right, we got a little bit of time. Let me just mention real quick, since I had it in the promos, and I actually plan to talk about it a lot more extensively. But the United States seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker a couple of days ago, and it was a vessel that was a part of this global shadow fleet that was transporting oil and who knows what else. It had been up until a couple of weeks ago, I believe, a Venezuelan vessel, and it was recently reflagged as a Russian vessel. They begged the United States not to seize it. And of course, now, everyone on the left likes to say that President Trump is a Putin stooge, that he's doing the bidding of Putin. Seizing a Russian flagged oil tanker against their wishes is you're kind of doing stooge wrong, right? Somebody who's a stooge of someone else is going to do exactly what they want when they want it and say how high when they say jump. But they seize this oil tanker, and the reports that I've seen, after everything broke, I kind of didn't stay up on this particular story, but from what I had seen, it wasn't full of oil, and so then that begs the question: what was on this vessel that made Russia decide or beg the United States not to seize it? Who knows? Who knows? But this is going to be interesting to see play out, and I will be keeping an eye on it, because I want to see if they announce what was on that vessel. I'm not sure they will, and if they don't, that's fine. I mean, some things in statecraft and international diplomacy need to be kept secret. Maybe this is one of them. I don't know. We'll see. But this is part of America First. There were sanctions on this shadow fleet. There were sanctions against Russia and Iran and Venezuela, and they were just acting in this shadow fleet with impunity, as if those sanctions didn't exist. And sanctions enforcement under President Trump got some bite to it. Running these shadow fleets just got a whole lot riskier. And the implications on energy geopolitically just got a whole lot more interesting. But again, this is America First. This is what I voted for, and I suspect this is what most of you voted for. This is just another in the series of President Trump putting the world on notice. We are the big dogs. We are running the show now. And that's why I think we're about to acquire Greenland somehow. We're not going to invade militarily. There's not going to be a war, but Greenland is going to be ours. We will control Greenland. Of that, I have no doubt. And there is actually a Cold War agreement in place that allows us to control Greenland and to operate many bases on Greenland. We just haven't done it. America first. America first. And I am here for it. And I suspect you are too. All right, there was another story I wanted to get to, but don't really have time to get into it. We're about 8 minutes left. So let's head over to Twitchy and see if we can get some laughs. Oh, O2AMT says the vessel was stateless according to maritime law. Too bad for them. Yep. Too bad. Despite Russia begging us not to take it and sending a submarine to escort it, but oh well. All right, let's see what we got over here on Twitchy. Let's go ahead and share this tab. I love this site. This this site is awesome. DOJ confirms receiving a criminal referral that might partly explain why Tim Walz has become extra unhinged. Yeah, has he become extra unhinged? He kind of seems regularly unhinged to me, but let's take a look and see what we got here. They say Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has become extra unglued recently, even for him. Again, I'm not so sure. Leading report says Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been referred to the DOJ for criminal charges for allegedly knowingly being complicit in a Somali fraud scandal. Well, duh. I don't think we needed a DOJ referral to tell us that was true. Yeah, that's not that interesting. I think we all knew that. JD Vance shuts former defense attorney claiming ICE officers instigated Minnesota attack down in one glorious post. Well, he's always good for a glorious post. Let's see what he has to say. A former defense attorney and current civil liberties attorney who claims to have no political dog in the fight jumped into the Minneapolis shooting discussion to share her clearly political opinion. Well, of course. Jenna Eunice says, I am a former defense attorney and currently a civil liberties attorney with no political dog in this fight. I watched the video at least 10 times from different angles and at different speeds and waited to offer an opinion, which I still reserve the right to change if additional, it goes on down here. I'm not going to switch over to Twitter. The video shows the steering wheel is turned to the right, clearly attempting to leave without hitting anyone. Anyway, we've already addressed that. Even a real police officer would not have the right to shoot at her for trying to flee. Well, no, because she wasn't trying to flee. She was trying to run him over. So, debunked. And the video shows she was trying to escape a perceived threat. No, incorrect. So let's see what JD Vance has to. This is preposterous, JD Vance says. First of all, she's not waving the officers through and has no right to do so even if she were. She is waving another car through before the officers approach the car. Second, officers are not randomly searching her. They are approaching her vehicle. Let's see. They are approaching her vehicle because she is violating the law. Namely, she is obstructing a lawful enforcement operation. You are not allowed to walk up or drive up to people who are enforcing the law to make it harder for them to do their jobs. The officer didn't discharge his weapon to prevent her from fleeing. When he discharged his weapon, she had pointed the vehicle at him and pressed the gas, as we talked about with the wheel spinning. He discharged his weapon in self-defense. Yeah, I mean, Sackhead Sean's got to go again. Thank you for being here, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. BZ says, remember, the facts mean nothing. The case will be held in Minneapolis because no local judge will allow another venue, and jury nullification will occur as in 1995. Yeah. I mean, this ICE agent is in some legal jeopardy, and not for anything he did wrong, just so that we're clear. But he is in legal jeopardy because they are going to try and railroad him. They are going to try and railroad him. All right, y'all. That is it for today's briefing. We are not here to just fill airtime and opine. We're here to equip Christian men to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope to the next generation. So if that matters to you, don't just watch. Like this video, share it. Share the channel, bring other men into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, like this shirt right here, the Mission Ready Men logo tee, or the ungovernable tee as I posted earlier, head over to missionreadymen.com and hit Shop 7 Armors and check out all the great designs we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.